Welcome to Discerning News, where we bring you current stories from a bigger picture perspective. The purpose is to inspire clarity and enthusiasm for your unique journey. This is our Memorial Day Spiritual Perspectives episode. You guys ready?
Yes, we're ready.
I'm loving it.
So, we all three have served our country in one way or another, and we're going to share a little bit about that. And what else are we going to share about in this episode, Tom?
Well, we're going to go over the purpose of Memorial Day from the spiritual perspective. We'll talk each about our experience providing service to the country. We'll recap some positive experiences, what we got out of it spiritually. And we'll also share with folks areas to sidestep or become aware of so that from a spiritual perspective, to keep our energy in that feeling of love, that thrust of service, and really taking away positive experience from the whole situation. We'll wrap up with some overall highlights and how to make this idea of Memorial Day practical. So without further ado, let's get started.
All right. Hey, Tiger, you want to talk a little bit about what is Memorial Day spiritually, too?
Yeah. So Memorial Day that's the United States term. Most countries have Remembrance Day, as they say. I think Australia and New Zealand have Anzac Day, but in short, it is a national time for the country to remember those who have given their lives or fallen in service to the country. That is the nucleus of it, and so that we remember and appreciate and continue to build on what they've done in order to move the country forward, all that kind of stuff. So that's the spirit of it for me. And did I leave anything out?
No, I think that's pretty.
Well, I think, one of the areas that we're bringing up today is, you can be cynical about it, that people have passed on in wars and in that in the line of fire, or you can have a bigger picture spiritual perspective about that overall purpose from a soul's experience and soul's perspective.
Yeah, I agree too. And recently we were watching the Vietnam documentary on Netflix, a recent one that just came out. And so just watching that situation and many others that have transpired on the planet since we've all been here as, civilizations, it's amazing what service we all, we go into, what we do, the things we play out while we're here, and then getting that spiritual perspective around it's really kind of a key thing for me.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess the first thing that really stands out to me is just coming back to those who have passed on in that way. This is the first thing that comes to me. So basically, there's we honor that once every year. It's to help us that are alive remember that. But then there's a whole series of things, like in America, we play something called taps after somebody passes on, or even when you lower the flag, they play taps. But you play taps, and that's a familiar trumpet that many people will hear, do, 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 that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that helps the soul know that it's passed on. Because in those situations that are so dramatic, and so things happen very quickly
and traumatic,
right? And they can be traumatic. But sometimes the soul doesn't realize that they've checked out, passed on. So there's all these tools and rituals, and that's in memoriam. I mean, that's been for thousands of years. We put things into place to help people know that they've passed on, and different rituals and things like that. So I guess the first thing I'd say is not only the appreciation for what I have and those people who have made that quote unquote ultimate sacrifice, but also to just let those souls know that they've done the job, they've fulfilled the mission. And it doesn't matter. It's like we're all soldiers, really. It's spiritually, we're all in that making the grade. And some make it certain in a distance, and some make it further along, and some make it further along yet. But we're all advancing, right? And that's the key for me to remember. So in the spirit of that, to me, the first thing I tune into when it comes to Remembrance Day, Memorial Day, Anzac, whatever it is releasing those souls, letting them be free. They did the mission. They made the ground, and it doesn't matter how far it was, but you're free now. You know, it's like a soldier. You're free. You did the job. Good job. Now it's time to go home.
Follow
right?
those lights.
That's right. That's what I was just going to say too. It's like that was that, you know, going home, like home, not just home where the house is, like home where I truly go when I pass on. I'm free.
Mhm.
And so that's the big thing for me, is to really tune into that feeling like, okay, you did the job. You don't need to hang on anymore. You did it. You can go and regroup and move on. And to me, that is worthy of what would be considered the ultimate sacrifice.
Well, that's interesting because without holding on the souls, but as far as us left here, also sometimes don't support that letting them go.
Right.
Because, you know, I know like recently, well, my dad passed away, 92, but so he was a Vietnam vet. And to this day, when I talk to mom about things about that, you know, there's a lot of tears, there's a lot of sorrow, there's a lot of, and I freaking get it, especially after watching that Vietnam documentary. And so being able to regroup what happened and be able to let go of that, especially us that are here still, that and those that have been through situations like, I mean, World War II, they're getting, a lot of them are kind of gone. Vietnam, there's still quite a few left. The Iraqi war, the Afghanistan, all those areas, there's still a lot of people here. And for those that have passed, you know, it's a time of, you know, being able to really remember, be in memoriam, but also how to let go of them allow them to move on as the souls.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that strikes me is I watched a recent YouTube video about where did this idea of the ultimate sacrifice, no greater love has a man for, his fellows, but to lay down his life kind of a idea. And, of course, Christianity is founded on that, one of those, that's part of the tenets of the whole thing, that. However, this has been an idea that's been around for eons. In other words, the YouTube video put it in such a way that, when humans were evolving on the savannah, there was lots of wild animals, and I'm going to just put this simplistic, and big cats. In fact, they found fossils, which looks like a lot of deaths occurred because of a big cat kind of a thing in early hominids. And there's if you watch wildebeests, they when the lions go to attack the wildebeest, they always take the weakest one, right?
Yep.
And once the lions catch this weak one or this old one or whatever, and they start eating, the other wildebeest calm down and they actually will watch the lions eat. And so there's this underlying feeling of, this is where this human sacrifice idea may come in that, oh, they've passed on, now we can relax.
Right.
Somebody has given their life for us. And so I just wanted to share that from that perspective of, why would it ever make sense for someone to give up their life? Why do we make such a big deal out of that? But all I'm suggesting here is that not from a spiritual perspective, but in the evolutionary perspective, there's a thread, an emotional reaction, you might say, to these situations. And so that's kind of carried on in our subconscious.
And that's a good way to now talk a little bit about why the branches and what we served in,
Yeah.
and why did we choose to go there? Because there's something there, right?
Yeah. So I was an FBI agent for several years back in the 1980s. And there's been many agents that have become service martyrs. I'm in the Society of Former FBI Agents, and they often honor almost every month somebody who's passed on, either were killed in the line of duty or passed on as a result of their duties, like at 9/11 and asbestos and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, that's was my experience as I was a young FBI agent. I joined right out of college, and I was looking for an opportunity. I said at the time, I used to say, "Oh, I just want something interesting to do from 9 to 5." I'd been training as an engineer, and I had some engineering management experience in the sense that line management is an engineer or professional experience, so that I met their criteria to get in, and made it through the process. But when I think of it overall, like the part that I really loved was just that service vibration, that, communication, coordination, recheck, working with people who are really directed. And, I really enjoyed it. What about you?
Well, for myself, I was in the Air Force, and I went in right after high school. I was 17, 2 weeks before I turned 18. I went in. And it's interesting because I came in with into a family where my father was Army, my grandfather was Army, and I had two uncles in the Navy. So I came in on that paternal side with a lot of military background and military energy behind me. And so went in right after high school and found myself in Germany, which ironically is one of my past lives. So in recognizing that there was some healing I needed to do over there. At that time, of course, I didn't understand as much as I do now about being a soul in a physical body and all the things that we, experience while we're here. But in looking back at the situation that I was in Germany, and it was before the wall came down. Matter of fact, it was 8 months before the wall came down before I left there. And I went over to East Berlin. And so it was definitely a time of understanding now whatever I could have understood at that moment, because I was like 19, 20. Now, if I was over there at, 57, I would have a different viewpoint about what energetically has gone on over there and how it feels. And but looking back at it, I recognize that there was a lot of components energetically in myself for my soul's journey, as well as what had gone on the country with the people that I was within the village, because there were still people that didn't like Americans, and I had knew people that had been spit on in different places in Luxembourg and stuff. So there was a lot of things going on over there energetically, but there were so many people in memoriam over there from the World War II before long before I arrived. So that's my perspective of looking back at that situation. But for what I gained out of being in the Air Force was definitely a camaraderie. And it's interesting because I think I might have mentioned to you guys the other day how, it was a mixed bag of people in the military. And if you look at a military branch, it's like just being out in the normal realm. Yeah. There's so many different people, and the same thing with the military. But there's something unique about being involved in a group with the same mission, with the same things going on at one time. I've never found it anywhere else. And I absolutely love the time. I spent about a little under 4 years in, and I loved it. I would not trade it for the world. And I'm honored to have served the way I served at that moment in time. What about you, Tiger?
I served in the Navy, got out. I went in right at 18 as well. And got involved in the Navy, went through all the usual stuff, eventually worked my way into the Naval Special Warfare Program, where I had most of my time in the service, and did two tours, or two cruises as they call them, around South America. Really were
But you weren't quite cruising.
Yeah, it wasn't cruising. Not like
No.
that. But it was similar in that, I think all of us would say that we really wouldn't trade it for the world.
No, it was great.
It was a tremendous experience. And it was something for myself that I think there was a need there for me. And that's no other way to describe it. I wasn't trying to escape some kind of, thing from the judge or the law or something. Because sometimes they let you, if you, instead of going to jail, you can go into the service, it's like, I wasn't doing that. I wasn't trying to run away or anything like that. There was just something there that I needed to fulfill, and that was for me. It was a bit innate. Like there was something there that I needed. Later on, as I regrouped, I realized that there was a need for the physical challenge, which was very challenging for me, and also to start to apply some of the spiritual tenets that I had, and being a young person, even though you might know stuff, it still takes time to develop. So I think those are the two major components. I could say that maybe there was something there from the past or something that to work with. However, those are the things that really stood out. And there is a special thing, and I think most people could relate to, if you're involved with a group or an organization, certainly if you're involved in some kind of service-driven outfit, you really do have that camaraderie that's not quite like any place else. There's a uniqueness, especially when there's danger involved. If you know that there's a sense that there can be danger involved, that galvanizes things together, right? The mission, and then there's that extra component. The thing for me is I was in during peacetime, right? And so the stuff that would happen, I'd know people that were outside my platoon, but I knew them. Like they would pass on from accidents or from mishaps, or something, like we'd be underwater and something would go wrong and someone didn't make it, kind of thing. Or when there were little conflicts, I call them little, but they're not little, but like we had people who didn't make it back from Somalia when that was happening in the 90s and stuff. And so all that kind of, like, oh God, this is happening, but all of it, at least for the people I was with, it wasn't something that was scary. It was part of the price I paid for being there. And that's the key, I think, for me, that I related to what we opened with, which is the topic of letting the soul go, right? So for me, at least, we had really good trainers, and plus I came in with a little bit of that understanding, not heaps, but enough. And so when that brought itself, hey, did you hear about so-and-so passed on, or so-and-so didn't make it? It's like, oh, wow, God, but then you moved on, right? There was this, okay, got it. We move on. And so that's a real powerful thing I got out of that situation, where I stopped being afraid as much as you would see on TV, right? There's a gap between what really happens and what TV says is happening, at least for me. So that energy of I loved being in the environment. It was a tremendous opportunity. I do know that there's people in there that they hated it and stuff like that. I couldn't relate to that. I volunteered. I wanted to be there. But when those situations came up, I think the lessons for me always had to do about just keep moving forward. And that helped shape the intellect, right? The intellectual thinking. For me, it did. It like kept me from trying to hold on to something. And there was a detachment there.
I wanted to mention that I'd had a previous lifetime, and Teresa may want to mention hers as well, where I was in the service and I passed on in World War II. And it was one of the first past lives that I became aware of some decades ago. I had inklings that this had happened. And one of the things that struck me in this lifetime was that I came in to wrap up I was in similar work, although it was more wartime back then. And I was overseas when I checked out, from the impressions that I get. But I came back, and then I came back to wrap up some areas and what I needed to learn, working with that kind of energy. So I don't know. I just thought I'd mention that there's hope,
Yeah, I guess. Well, I'll mention mine too. So I said earlier, I went back to Germany. And so my previous lifetime was as a German soldier. And in looking back and tuning into that lifetime, I recognized that, because in Germany, I don't know if it was this way in the war, but like nowadays you have to serve. Everyone has to serve. You've got 2 years to serve in the military. And so, as a soldier, oftentimes, you go in, you're in that energy, you do what needs to be done. And sometimes it's messy. A lot of times it's messy. And so recognizing that, coming back into another lifetime where now I'm American, now I've got more freedom, now I've got more ways to, expand and grow. And and then finding myself back in that realm, back in that energy, which was very oppressive, which was very dark and heavy. And so recognizing for myself that I clearly came back in order to do some healing work around that in a big way. And it's ironic enough, years ago, as I was going through massage therapy school, and then I went in and did a lot of healing work for, it was 20 years ago, but there was one time when I worked with a German lady, and this is long before I knew anything about my previous life. And there was something I just didn't like about her. I'm telling you, it was like I did a healing, a breath work, holotropic 2 or 3 hour breath work, which was freaking crazy, but I did it. And there was something about it. And she too had something, like we could feel something, right? And then years later, I went back to her after I recognized and did a lot of stuff was coming up in my physical body, and I was emoting, and all kinds of stuff was crazy in this time frame when I was healing a lot of this stuff, or accessing the healing compartments of it. Is I said to her, I want to let you know this is what I recognize. And she said, "Oh, interesting," because there was something there, and she couldn't pinpoint what this was about the fact that there was this, animosity. There was this a feeling between us. And I've had this with other German people this lifetime. So it's quite interesting, and people have asked me, how did you know about your past lives and this and that? And, think everyone's on different trajectories. So for myself and my healing for my soul, that was just something I needed to come back in and work with, just like, you and your area too. And I'm sure you've got your story about it too, to some degree, but recognizing that those areas that, that need healing sometimes just come up. That's all I want to say about it.
As the Earth's crust shifts and changes, our lives do the same. One way to maneuver through the small and large moments that shake us to the core is by reviving your connection to spirit, gathering ways to cleanse your energy field, embracing spiritual awarenesses to give you a bigger picture, and knowing that you are not alone on your journey can be a great support. The Soulquake Survival Guidebook is a great companion to meet you where you're at and support reviving your connection to spirit in earth-shaking times. Get your copy today through Amazon worldwide in paperback, ebook, or in audio, and begin embracing more clarity, inner peace, and enthusiasm for your life and what you've come to do.
Yeah, I know for me that, the idea of the glory in the work, can be I like to say the word, it's a pitfall. What that means is it's like a block from the service. So if I get too caught up in that, I can blow my timing. And to be honest, that's one of the key things that I regrouped about that lifetime and a lifetime before. And so as I moved into the opportunity to be of service this lifetime, in fact, for 2 lifetimes, I got checked out in kind of combat type experiences. One was more in the West, and it was a little different situation. But, like spiritually, just not trusting my feelings and maybe being driven by something more intellectual, like a glory trip kind of idea, subtly. So I'm admitting some key things here. But as I came back into this lifetime, one of the things that struck me is like, I didn't need to be in that environment in the FBI for the rest of my life. It was just something I needed to wrap up and tune back. I had another opportunity to tune back into more the service of it. And my feeling is some of the people around me, I have great respect for the people that I worked with. And that's one of my favorite parts, is that when I think about those early mentors and those, you might say, my spiritual journeyman in a sense, without ever them realizing it, so there's always a purpose to it. It might be a short-lived purpose, might be a short lifetime, but in the bigger picture, there's a purpose for my involvement.
Yeah, I mean, you're touching on a much bigger picture now. We're going there with the bigger picture now. So,
well, it is the spiritual perspective.
It is. So the thing that's standing out to me from what you're saying has to do with the enslavements of the soul, and that whole glory, devotion, and competition, right? Like all the other ones stem from those basic 3 things. So if I go into a situation with that glory trip in mind, or I've been fed that, right?
Right.
Go die for your country, right?
Yep.
Or
Get in
what-
line.
Get in
Go-
line.
go on
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
things.
In the meat grinder.
Yeah.
But anyway, if or the competition of it, or I'm going to be better than, or devoting myself to whatever it is. So the point is that if I go into a situation with that training or with that in my mind, it's easy to start becoming disillusioned after when reality hits.
Great.
Right?
Yeah, that you're bringing that up.
Or I have that, sudden shift as souls do when they pass on. It's like there's that lingering energy there because it's not fulfilled. It's like, but I came in here for this devotion. I came in here for this big trip, for the glory of the movement or the country or for God or for whatever it is. And then now there's that emptiness. There's that break between what it is. So I think that's why I opened with, we have all these rituals to help people pass on, like playing taps or showing certain things, moving the wreaths to the stones, of the
Fallen soldiers.
Yeah, the fallen soldiers. All these things are to help you realize, oh my gosh, I think I passed on, right? This kind of thing. So, but if I don't go in with that, in other words, I don't get caught in the glory, devotion, and competition, right? That's the key. If I'm not being caught in it, I'm going to work with it to a degree because this is planet Earth. I need to work with some of that. I got to play the game, right? There's a difference between, negative prestige and positive prestige, or being proud of what I do, but not getting involved in this prideful thing, right? Or having positive competition as opposed to outer competition. This is the working with it in a way that's balanced. But if I'm working with that energy and realizing that, oh, I'm going to go do this big cause and forget that I'm here in my opportunity, that's where the separation begins. That's the heavy duty part of Memorial Day for me, rather than, hey, this was an opportunity for me. And whilst that sounds heavy duty, like, wow, you're going to go to the service and check out or, get hurt, whatever. In the end, it all equals the same, because if I'm truly following what I've come to do, if I'm taking the steps, I have something in my heart and I'm taking the steps that appear in front of me, I'm on track no matter what. And even if I don't make it all the way out and then something happens to me, I'm on track. I can move forward. I can let go. I can have my next opportunity and I don't linger. So that bigger picture of not getting into the whole suffering thing, because that's the other nasty part of it. People will suffer the fallen thing, and rather than, okay, it happened, but let's learn from it. Now let's move forward. Nobody's dead. This is the thing. Nobody dies, right? Just the physical body goes back to the earth from which it came, right? But the real me keeps going, right? So that would be so powerful for me to be able to move through my day with that understanding.
It's interesting you mentioned about the soul and the essence we have within us, because I had a friend who I actually knew in the military over in Germany, and she passed away maybe 3 years ago now. And she came to me in a dream after she passed, and I saw her as a light. My God, it was the brightest light I'd ever seen. And
Wow.
so it really gave me the insight and obviously the visual, because I felt it, that we all have that within us.
Yeah.
So all of the souls who passed, that we reincarnate over and over again, but we're all just bright lights. Everyone on the whole planet.
It's beautiful.
And I think, sometimes when you think in terms of our enemies, those
Right.
people that, like I love Teresa sharing about having been a German soldier in World War II, because, in my upbringing in Chicagoland in the 60s, the Second World War was still, very much on everybody's minds. It was only like 20 years or less later. And, it gives me a better perspective of what opportunities were there, In other words, in Western culture, to have been a German soldier or Nazi was like the epitome of evil. We
Absolutely.
we still call people Nazis and Hitler and all that sort of stuff. But really, it's just a soul having an experience. And we do have courses where people can come, and we have short versions of courses like 3 hours. We have 6 hour courses where we help people work with their sensitivity so that they can start to take astro trips and begin to regroup, get those impressions of their past lives and how that's affecting them today and what some of the solutions are. So it's not about the glory trip of the past life for us. It's about, how do I make this practical for me being here right now?
We exist in a highly intellectual world, and often the feeling part where your inner wisdom lies gets left out. There's a way to feel more in balance with all parts of yourself. This way is by accessing a spiritual bigger picture of who you are as a soul. Check out the link in the show notes to access a free video series created by the Wayshowers College to support your journey and moving through this game of life. Your intellect and feeling parts will love it.
My final little comment is, it's one thing. I used to say this about law enforcement all the time. Like, it's one thing to watch a television show about law enforcement. It's another thing to be in it. And it's very, the way things happen, the way people talk to each other, it's just more like everyday life. And I would even say the bad guys that, we supposedly were working cases against, like, they're not pure evil or anything. There's some confusion there, and they cross the boundaries, and they don't respect, the rules and regulations that we have, so we can all learn and grow. And we have our ways of dealing with them in the society at this particular time. But there is still that soul that's evolving through time.
Yeah. I have an analogy about some of that, about making sure that I don't hold on to things. It's the story is basically have a master and an apprentice, and they're monks, and they're going down. They come down from the mountain. You've probably heard this story before, but they come down from the mountain down to the town, and they go do their works and help people, and they also, get their gifts and rice and stuff because they don't have a job per se, so they have to rely on what people give them. So they come and they get their little pouch and with the rice and some nourishment and stuff for the temple. So they go and as they're going back up the hill, there is this road that's washed out because the rain had come, and there was this woman standing on the edge of the road, and she was in this lovely kimono. This is a very back then, this was a very high dollar situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is not something you would just get flippantly. Kind of word of the day. So anyway, they came up to her on either side of her, the master and the apprentice. And the apprentice looked at her and looked at the situation. Oh, she's afraid to go across the thing because it's muddy. And he just kind of acknowledged it. And then he just walked across because they're in bare feet. They just, whatever, And the older one, the master, looks at her and looks at the situation, came behind her and grabbed her by the waist, picked her up, walked past the mud, and then put her down, right? And then he just kind of went about his business, and she went about her business. And then the two of the master and apprentice went walking up the thing. It takes a while to get up that mountain. They just we're going. Finally get to the door, and they, bang the door, to let him in. And as they're waiting for the people to come and open the big gate, the apprentice explodes. Like, he's just terribly, terribly angry, really angry. And he's, in essence is, why did you do that? He says, what did I do? What? He says, why did you help that lady across the street, knowing our vows and knowing our traditions? How could you get involved with that? And he looked at him and he said, well, I put her down at the end of the road. When are you going to put her down? So the moral for me is, it's easy to carry stuff if I don't have an understanding, if I'm not being in the moment, right? I'll just carry stuff with me. I'll think, how many of us have just think about stuff that happens in our lives and these overthinking and keep thinking before I know it, it's affecting my physical body. It's affecting my sleep. It's affecting the people that I attract around me, because like attracts like, right? So if going back to this Memorial Day energy, I have to be willing to be involved in my opportunity and then let it go and move on. Otherwise, I'm going to get stuck. I'm going to be confined by people's thoughts and thinking, confined by my own thoughts and thinking, right? That's the other reason why we do the Memorial Day, so that I let people go. I don't keep thinking about them and drawing them down like an anchor, right? So to me, that comes back to that energy. Am I letting go of my daily situations? We talk about, one more last thing, we talk about reincarnation. If people want to understand that concept, am I bringing yesterday into today? How much of that am I doing? Like, there are things that it's like, ooh, that really worked. Let me practice that tomorrow and keep going, right? Oh, that was a really crappy situation. Do I keep doing that? Am I bringing that back into tomorrow? That's the ultimate reincarnation, right? Because I'm having that opportunity every single day. And if you do that practice that we work with in program, where you learn to cleanse and do some of those courses we're talking about, you actually learn to do that between opportunities, right? You're going from work to home, from home to rest, from rest to wake up and go to work, to go play with your friends. Like, each one of those, it can be a lifetime, right? That's the pureness of it. And then making sure that I learn, but I let go.
Well said. Anything else you want to say about that, Tom?
One of the things that struck me about, thoughts of what was fair, what was unfair, and the injustice of things or the justice of things. The final thought I kind of have of this is what's coming to mind is we watched a special on the Thunderbirds, and Teresa loved it, being, former Air Force. And
It's
the
awesome.
Thunderbirds are the elite jet pilots.
That's right.
In the Air Force.
In the Air Force.
Yeah. And that especially looking at them from this perspective of my experience back on the planet this lifetime, that, boy, the communication, the coordination, the check and recheck, the service vibration that they all had, you can tell is a huge driving force, in my opinion, and how inspirational that is, but I think about it and I go, it's just an opportunity. I mean, they moved through it for 2 years. They learned to do some very dangerous maneuvers. If you don't know what you're doing, you have to be really present and really aware. And one of their codes is blind trust. And I thought to myself, now, let's me apply that to my spiritual life. Right. Am I going to have that kind of crystal clear communication with my spiritual helpers, with the team that I'm working with here on planet Earth? I can live that vibration. I don't have to fly F-16s or whatever it is, although that would be fun. I think, they pull a lot of G's, so it could be painful too. So anyway, those challenges, but they just pass. I mean, they pass in our lives. And once you've been through them, what do I really ever take away from any of that? It's just the experience that I had, and those feelings inside of fulfillment and accomplishment, and organizing myself to a new level of spiritual efficiency is really probably what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I think piggybacking on that is that in this documentary, there were 4 servicemen that passed. 4 of them, with the blind trust, they they went right into the earth with the leader of the 4-pack, and then the other one blacked out, because with the G's you can actually black out, and he never came, and boom, right into the earth. So in memoriam to those men and that lost their lives in this documentary, it's really, for myself, it felt very honoring to be doing what they love. So every person that goes into this field, and it's the same thing for some of us in the military, like we volunteered to go in. Now, of course, Vietnam and other ones were drafted, but we volunteered to go in there. There is something, a soul calling there. And same as with this documentary, these souls had a calling to be in this group at this specific time, doing this specific event, and the dangers that come along with it. And so in recognizing that, like you're saying, whether it be this lifetime, past lifetime, whatever, we all are just souls moving through these experiences, and they're just experiences.
That's my kind of closing to that as well, is that that vibration of do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life kind of thing. And indeed, there are things that I've done or had to do, whether it was in this job or that job or in the service, that I was not happy with. I did not like doing, and there were times where I remember doing stuff that was 100% opposite to why I was there, and 100% political. Had no value other than pure politics, right? And it was frustrating. And a lot of people really latched onto that and really could have bad experiences with that. I think the why I'm opening up do what you love and you'll never work in a day in your life kind of thing, because if I find myself in a situation where I'm not happy, then I need to start pointing. It's my responsibility to start pointing myself into a place that I will be happy. That's nobody's responsibility but mine. I owe no one anything, and no one owes me anything. So I come in alone, I go out alone, right? That's what we say. So if I'm not raising my own state of consciousness, nobody's going to do it for me. So if it's my responsibility that I'm going to have ups and downs in my life, no matter what group I'm with. How many of us have ever had a perfect relationship with a partner 24 hours a day? It doesn't happen. You have your ups and downs. Oh, you have the perfect job, and every single thing that happens in the present company excluded, right? You have your job, and everything's perfect in that job, right? Or in the service, for instance, everything's perfect. No, that's not how it works. So it's my responsibility to put myself into the direction of what I need to do. And if I don't have the opportunity to change the physical situation, then it is my role and my opportunity to change how I think about it.
Beautiful.
Otherwise, I'm going to be caught up in something that could be beautiful for me, could take me to the next level. I will reject every single step and insight and manifestation that comes.
Yeah, one of the things that strikes me about that is on the Thunderbirds is that they're the fellow who was in charge, the commander, the boss, the air boss. He was very inspirational in the sense that there's a team of like 130 people that are involved in the Thunderbirds. It's not just the 4 or 5 pilots, and
it's a whole group.
There's a ground crew, there's the mechanics, there's everybody working at this high level standard of excellence, high standards. And one of the things he pointed to, which is appropriate for Memorial Day here in the United States, is that we're all working together for an ideal bigger than ourselves. And he pointed to the American flag. So one of the things that struck me was that, Teresa and I are saying, God, I get so sucked into that. I could, let's go, that feeling of service to this higher ideal. And why is that? And I feel like from a spiritual perspective, it's love, it's being of service for a greater amount of people. There's a flow of energy to it. There's an uplifting awareness to it. And that's why service, for me, this is my experience and how I would describe it, is so fulfilling, and how easy it is to go there. Now, if I start focusing on what my higher ideal is, and my higher ideal is to be happy and free, and my evolution, now I can maintain that service mentality or that service energy. It's a way of thinking, but it's a way of being. It's an energy, and there's times to be of service and there's times to back off. That's true inner fairness to me, but what do you folks think about that?
Yeah, I feel that.
We're getting a little bit back to that ultimate sacrifice service.
Yeah, I think
vibration.
that's a good place to kind of wind all this up.
Yeah.
For sure. Is just on for myself, honoring the path that my soul has taken this lifetime, other lifetimes, and really honoring those that have served and have lost their lives for, like you're saying, the flag for our country, because it's I don't take it lightly, and I really. Yeah, I just don't take it lightly, because it's for myself as a soul, I can feel so much love for the people who've come before me and who have paved the path that we're all so grateful for. Because even if, the chaos and the craziness that goes on politically, or, in the neighborhoods or whatever, people come back from war, these souls have really sacrificed a lot and found themselves in situations for their lessons and their learnings. And a lot of the opportunities were for, passing on. So I just want to say that, I'm just honored for the people that have come before me.
Yeah. To my, putting the bow on the whole thing is, we talk about three loyalties.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about three loyalties, and the first loyalty is to myself. My second loyalty is to my unit, the smaller unit that I work with. And my third loyalty is to the bigger picture. This could be your flag, this could be the planet, this could be all these things. So if I have those first two clear, then it really lets me totally release myself into that feeling of service to that bigger picture, to the country, to the world. And if I'm in that flow, the beauty and the feeling of what those quote unquote sacrifices have done, I feel that without being emotional. Like I might feel emotion, like I might cry a little bit, but it's more of a feeling rather than this roller coaster of emotions that, they did something that I couldn't do, or that's something because of them. Now I've got this. There is truth to that. And that is a reality. However, I would never send someone to go do something I'm not willing to do. And that, because I have that, and I would think many sensitives and many people who are spiritual would fall into that category, right? We do unto others as we would do unto you, right? Mm-hmm. So that it gives me the love and the respect for those people who have done that, because I know we know we have brothers and sisters that don't want anything to do with the service, right? Let alone going to die for strangers type thing, right? And I respect them for that too. But all of them that I do talk to do have a respect for the people who did, right? Yes. They themselves may not want that to be a part of that, right? You may not want to be a part of that, but we can all respect and honor those souls who have. And I think that's the beauty of the Memorial Day when it comes to the service, and understanding that third loyalty is it's a part of me, whether I like it or not. So as long as I have it in place, I can enjoy myself. I can find my way amongst opportunities. I can embrace the situation and people, and I can let them go when it's time to move on.
Beautiful. Well, my final word is the greatest evolution occurs through freedom and service.
That's it.
That's a great way to end.
Well said.
Well
Freedom
said.
and service.
Absolutely. So on this Memorial Day, Wherever you're at, we hope that you have enjoyed this episode and looking forward to come back next week with some new spiritual perspectives and discerning some upcoming news of the new week ahead. And just keep in your hearts in love and just remember those that have fallen before us. And happy Memorial Day, everyone. To keep the enthusiasm going, please like, subscribe, or comment below. We would love to hear from you.